It is at work everywhere, functioning smoothly at times, at other times in fits and starts. It breathes, it eats, it heats, it shits and fucks. What a mistake to have ever said the id. Everywhere it is machines, real ones, not figurative ones. Machines driving other machines, machines being driven by other machines, with all the necessary couplings and connections. One of the major sort of plays with this, and Guattari goes over it, and Luz goes over it, and throughout this book they go over it, but it's playing back to the idea of a materialist philosophy of psychoanalysis. One of the issues with a great deal of psychoanalysis that came before, and I know we have Ken in here who does a lot of Lacanian, I'm a bit of a Lacan fan myself, but a great deal of that is this idea that these thoughts are not these experiences, these thoughts, the way that we're driven is not at a material level, that there's a transcendental property, entire thing. Instead, the entire play here is saying, look, even Drudge Schreiber, who has sunbeams in his ass, who's a famous case that Freud had of a man who absolutely sort of went off the edge, but believed he had sun coming out of his ass. Their point is simple. It's, look, it works. Judge Schreiber feels a thing. It produces something, and it is capable of explaining the process theoretically. Something is produced.
I think it is worth noting as well that Deleuze, and especially, doesn't really see a distinction between the material and the transcendental anyway. He believes in like a Spinozian one substance idea in the first place.
That's a great point. Yes. Hello, webcam parent. Thank you for joining us. That's a great point.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that when they say machine, they mean something prior to the distinction between nature and culture. So in English, the term machine is a little bit misleading because they're talking about something that is where you haven't distinguished between nature and culture yet, and that's why the breastfeeding is the primary metaphor, where you have two partial objects that connect together to become the desiring machine.
A schizophrenic out for a walk is a better model than a neurotic lying on the analyst's couch. A breath of fresh air, a relationship with the outside world. Linz's stroll, for example, is reconstructed by Buchner. This walk outdoors is different from the moments when Linz finds himself closeted with his pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially, in relationship to the god of established religion, in relationship to his father, to his mother. While taking a stroll outdoors, on the other hand, he is in the mountains, amid falling snowflakes, with other gods or without any gods at all, without a family, without a father or a mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he offer me more than that? Impossible. Leave me in peace. Everything is a machine. Celestial machines, stars or rainbows in the sky, alpine machines, all of them connected to those of his body. Continual whir of machines. He thought that it must be a feeling of endless bliss to be in contact with the profound life of every form, to have a soul for rocks, metal, water, and plants. To take into himself, as in a dream, every element of nature, like flowers that breathe, the waxing and waning of the moon. To be a chlorophyll or a photosynthesis machine, or at least slip his body into such machines as one part among the others. Linz has projected himself back to a time before the man-nature dichotomy.
Big part of psychoanalysis up until now, from both Freud and obviously Lacan's extensions to it, was that the idea was that the individual had like a hole in themselves, and then they like desired to fill that hole in themselves from things from the outside. The point that like Deleuze and Guattari are making already here even is that no, desire is an act of creation. You're not filling a hole. You're looking at things and you're drawing borders and you're saying this is an assemblage, and then you want the assemblage. So it's not to fulfill something within you. Everything, all these desires are acts of creation.
Their various gaits and methods of self-locomotion constitute, in and of themselves, a finely tuned machine. And then there is the function of the bicycle in Beckett's works. What relationship does the bicycle horn machine have with the mother anus machine? Well, to quote, "What a rest to speak of bicycles and horns. Unfortunately, it is not of them I have to speak, but of her who brought me into this world through a hole in her ass, if my memory is correct." Right, wonderful joke. Love Beckett. It is often thought that Oedipus is an easy subject to deal with, something perfectly obvious, a given that is there from the very beginning. This is not so at all. Oedipus presupposes a fantastic repression of desiring machines. Why are they repressed? To what end? Is it really necessary or desirable to submit to such repression? And what means are to be used to accomplish them? What ought to go inside the Oedipal triangle? What sort of thing is required to construct it? Are a bicycle horn and my mother's arse sufficient to do the job? again, going into the idea of what they mean by machine. They don't, again, necessarily mean it quite in the literal way, being metaphorical, but it's not mere metaphor. I remember going through all of this. One of the ones I want to definitely go over is the stone-sucking machine that they mention. The machine made of six stones in a pocket. Character, I believe it's Malloy. Someone who knows Beckett better, perhaps, will correct me. Has multiple stones in all of his jacket pockets, and he moves them from one to another, and then one into his mouth and sucks on the stones. He takes it out, puts it in the pocket, and he's basically developed this method that allows him to suck on all the stones. Now, outright, as they say here, where is the production of sexual pleasure inside the machine? How does this machine operate? Where does it work? And when we have all of these pieces, in itself, the machine itself doesn't actually have directly sexual pleasure.
When psychoanalysis deals with people in this sense, right, there's a way in which Oedipus is taken to be the subject and is taken not only, instead of Oedipus having been produced or anything like that, it sort of starts with as a presupposition, right? It's kind of transcendent in that sense, and it sort of stands in for the person here. What they're breaking apart with their discussion of Malloy here and the mother ass machine and all that, is that this neat triangle, one, in and of itself has been produced, and two, can't be taken as a given or a presupposed model for how this all comes together. So the schizophrenic, this is just like what we said about the family, the deities and all that. This process doesn't rely on, it's not enabled, nor does it rely on things like divinities, on the family, or those matters. Desiring production is what animates it, and that's what that last quote from Artaud, I think, is really showing, is that there's the machinic process is happening.
This characteristic man-nature, industry-nature, society-nature relationship is responsible for the distinction of relatively autonomous spheres that are called production, distribution, consumption. But in general, this entire level of distinctions, examined from the point of view of its formal developed structures, presupposes, as Marx has demonstrated, not only the existence of capital and the division of labor, but also the false consciousness that the capitalist being necessarily acquires both of itself and of the supposedly fixed elements within an all-over process. Or the real truth of the matter, the glaring, sober truth that resides in delirium, is that there is no such thing as relatively independent spheres or circuits. Production is immediately consumption and a recording process.
Yeah, another point is that there's a really good commentary by Daniel Smith on this, where he basically says that what they're doing is bringing Keynesian economics to Marx and Freud, and that so when they talk about flows and storage and those things, that those are terms from Keynesian economics that see economics as a flow, and that's kind of what they're bringing to both Marx and Freud at the same time.
Industry is then no longer considered from the extrinsic point of view of utility, but rather from the point of view of its fundamental identity with nature as production of man and by man. Not man as the king of creation, but rather as the being who is in intimate contact with the profound life of all forms or all types of beings, who is responsible for even the stars and animal life, and who ceaselessly plugs an organ machine into an energy machine, a tree into his body, a breast into his mouth, the sun into his asshole, the eternal custodian of the machines of the universe. This is the second meaning of process as we use the term. Man and nature are not like two opposite terms confronting each other, not even in the sense of bipolar opposites within a relationship of causation, ideation, or expression, cause and effect, subject and object, etc. Rather, they are one and the same essential reality, the producer product. Production as process overtakes all idealistic categories and constitutes a cycle whose relationship to desire is that of an immanent principle.
I just want to point out that this is a point about the relationship that we as theorizing and politically acting subjects have to the process, right? And how we act on the process, not so much about the nature of the process, like the process for itself. It's about the process for the subject. And I think that's an important distinction when we are getting into this discussion, because if we talk about like they introduce this with it must not be viewed as a goal or an end in itself, and I think that's another caution to just affirming the schizophrenic state or schizophrenic process as like a political goal, right? And I think to what Brooks was saying, maybe there's also a point about in how far we as subjects think about the process in terms of moving entities or developing entities, becoming entities, rather than the process in itself.
So another point is this producer product. You know, that could be seen as a reference to autopoiesis, self-production. And it turns out that, you know, even though Deleuze is thought to be anti-Hegelian, that's a point that Hegel makes toward the end of his Logic, that there is this category of producer and product together, which is like the relationship to a concrete universal in Hegel.
Yeah, but we've always got to be careful when putting Hegel and Deleuze and Guattari in relation. Right? They also follow that production as process overtakes all idealistic categories and constitutes cycle, whose relationship to desire is that of an immanent principle.
The schizophrenic is the universal producer. There is no need to distinguish here between producing and its product. We need to merely note that the pure thisness of the object produced is carried over into a new act of producing. The table continues to go about its business. The surface of the table, however, is eaten up by the supporting framework. The non-termination of the table is a necessary consequence of its mode of production. When Claude Levi-Strauss defines bricolage, he does so in terms of a set of closely related characteristics. The possession of a stock of materials or of rules of thumb that are fairly extensive, more or less hodgepodge, multiple and at the same time limited. The ability to rearrange fragments continually in new and different patterns of configurations. And as a consequence, an indifference toward the act of producing and toward the product, toward the set of instruments to be used, toward the overall result to be achieved. The satisfaction the handyman experiences when he plugs something into an electric socket or diverts a stream of water can scarcely be explained in terms of playing mommy or daddy or by the pleasure of violating a taboo. The rule of continually producing production, of grafting producing onto the product, is a characteristic of desiring machines or of primary production. The production of production.
So the big thing is it's not like you're naturally hungry, right? In that sense, it's not that kind of necessity. It's something that in and of itself, like Brooks is trying to describe there, like biologically, it's something that desiring production of these machines produce, and we kind of find ourselves in that sense experiencing. And I want to make that clear too, because this is where they start elaborating too on like the goal thing. So this production here, it's not produced in terms of trying to accomplish an end. So it's not consequentialist, yeah? It's not teleological, like we said earlier. And that's important too, even for hunger, because in this way, like, hunger is not produced in the sense of like a larger end. Hunger is produced very imminently in the process.
Producing a product. Producing product identity. It is this identity that constitutes a third term in the linear series, an enormous, undifferentiated object. Everything stops dead for a moment, everything freezes in place, and then the whole process will begin all over again. From a certain point of view, it would be much better if nothing worked, nothing functioned. Never being born, escaping the wheel of continual birth and rebirth, no mouth to suck on, no anus to shit through. Will the machines run so badly, their component pieces fall apart to such a point that they will return to nothingness and thus allow us to return to nothingness? It would seem, however, that the flows of energy are still too closely connected. Partial objects still too organic for this to happen. What would be required is a pure fluid in a free state, flowing without interruption, streaming over the surface of a full body. Desiring machines make us an organism, but the very heart of this production, within the very production of this production, the body suffers from being organized in this way, from not having some other sort of organization, or no organization at all. Quote, an incomprehensible, absolutely rigid stasis, end quote, in the very midst of process as the third stage. No mouth, no tongue, no teeth, no larynx, no esophagus, no belly, no anus. The automata stop dead and set free the unorganized mass they once served to articulate. The full body without organs is the unproductive, sterile, the unengendered, the unconsumable. Antonin Artaud discovered this one day, finding himself with no shape or form whatsoever. Right there where he was at that moment, the death instinct, that is its name, and death is not without a model. For desire desires death also, because the full body of death is its motor. Just as it desires life, because the organs of life are the working machine. We shall not inquire how all this fits together so that the machine will run. The question itself is the result of a process of abstraction.
Death drive is modeled after the body without organs. So see, they're kind of, this is what I mean too, like with the undifferentiation. They're juxtaposing what they're doing here conceptually with the typical psychoanalytic understanding.
Yeah, I think just at like a very basic level, what they're doing in this paragraph is introducing, without naming it, introducing the concept of anti-production, which is the body without organs rejecting the connection of the organs, but it's also the force that breaks the desiring machines apart. But I think that is related to the death drive. I think it's kind of, at least as I understand it, it's kind of their answer to it.
Yeah, it would be the Freudian death drive, right? Which is like that nirvana principle, or like the principle of entropy, where things move to their inanimate form. Right.
The last line there, I'd love anyone else to give thoughts, because it's always read to me also as doing just that. We shall not inquire how all this fits together so the machine will run. Even asking that is a process of abstraction. Is just it's snarky French shittiness is how I read it. It's not, we can't do that. It's a process of abstraction. We're no longer talking about literally how things work at a material level. We're abstracting away. And that's, a reference to Lacan and Freud as well. Sort of, again, shade at them. How I read it.
Yeah, I think to an extent they're saying we will not be put in a box. Do not put us in a box, right? Never stop. Don't think like, oh, yeah, this is what they're saying, and this is that, and this is that. Boom. Deleuze and Guattari. They're like, no, stop. There is no end.
The body without organs is non-productive. Nonetheless, it is produced at a certain place and a certain time in the connective synthesis as the identity of producing and the product. The schizophrenic table is a body without organs. A body without organs is not the proof of an original nothingness, nor is it what remains of a lost totality. Above all, it is not a projection. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the body itself or with the image of the body. It is the body without an image. This imageless, organless body, the non-productive, exists right where it is produced, in the third stage of the binary linear series. It is perpetually reinserted into the process of production. The catatonic body is produced in the water of the hydrotherapy tub. The whole body without organs belongs to the realm of anti-production. Yet another characteristic of the connective or productive synthesis is the fact that it couples production with anti-production, an element of anti-production.
What's really opening things up for me, and this is relating to the last discussion, for the last paragraph, where he says the full body of death is its motor. So for desire, desire is death also, because the full body of death is its motor. And I guess that answers, so if desire is a machine, how does the machine run? And somehow the death drive or death instinct or this body of death, whatever that is making desire run. And I find that really interesting because I think it's very different from at least like your typical psychoanalytic, why do we desire? Well, to live. And here it seems like he's saying, no, actually we desire because of death. And that's really counterintuitive. And then he goes on, just as it desires life, because the organs of life are the working machine. So it seems like the living body is the machine itself, but then there's this deeper level. Like there's this motor or engine that's making it all run, and that's somehow at the level of depth, whatever that means.
If I could take a crack at anti-production as well, that's been brought up.
Please.
So I think there's a mistake when we try to say anti-production is like against production or the opposite of production. I think maybe a better way of putting it would be a production, and that it is not production. And so this idea of producing anti-production never actually happens. Like anti-production can't be produced, and they elaborate on this later. And I'm not allowed to talk about the bloody little orchids here, but it's an illusion, right? It just seems like anti-production is produced, but it's not anything. It's not a production. It's more like a record or a scripture, and it just seems like things connect to the anti-production, but they actually like are almost miraculously connected to it. It's all ethereal.
Well, so this is why my sentence that, and I'm not saying it's exactly right, and Jack already, he said not quite. I'm like, yeah, I know it's not quite, but I'm trying to point at the thing. As I've understood, let's say in capitalism, anti-production is a series of edicts that is part of the sort of way that capital works, or a king may put out edicts that tells us not to do certain things, or that certain things are anathema. Society may tell us not to do stuff. Those elements being integrated into the design machines are anti-production. They are the element that is essentially a version of repression. But it's always anti-production isn't something we make internally to our design machines. It's something that exists outside of it and comes at I don't want to use the word outside because I know there really isn't one, but we're talking effectively about molar.
It's a fake outside, effectively.
Yeah, it's a fake outside. It's something that's more molar than molecular, though. So it's part of the molar regime rather than the molecular, that is determining that you can't do X and Y, that is a break in the flows that is not necessarily something that is, I don't want to say natural, but is not a real break in flow.